Hi everyone, I am CA Surbhi Punshi, Indirect Tax Expert at ClearTax, and today we all gathered here to understand about the preparation and the finalization of GSTR-9 form for FY 21-22. So we all know that the GSTR-9 form is already live on the government portal, and we can actually start preparing and filing the GSTR-9 form. So before we even start our session, I just want to check if you all are able to hear me or not. So if you are able to hear me, just say hi on the chat box. Great. So it seems like everyone is able to hear me. So with this, we'll just start our today's session, which is on preparation and finalization of GSTR-9 form. So if we just brief about like what exactly the GSTR-9 or annual forms are, right? So today, if we just talk about annual returns, we have the annual return for the registered person who are registered as a regular taxable person. We have the annual return for the composition dealer. We have the annual return for a person who have been registered as a tax collector. So these are some of the annual returns we do have today, but we are just going to focus on the annual returns which needs to be filed when we are registered as a regular taxpayer. So when I'm saying regular taxpayer, which means we file GSTR-1 and GSTR-3B today. So if we file GSTR-1 and GSTR-3B today, so we are required to file GSTR-9 as well as we are required to file GSTR-9C form. So these are the two forms which we are required to file. So we'll just focus on 9 and 9C in our today's session. Now, first important part, who all are exactly required to file the GSTR-9 form, or who all are exactly required to file GSTR-9C form. So when it comes to the 9 form, right? So if we just go in a normal language, in general language, every taxpayer is required to file GSTR-9. But we also know from 17, 18, 18, 19, 19, 20, and even in 2021, we have seen that there was some certain exceptions over there. There was something optional which was given to this taxpayer. So similar for FY 21-22 also. If your annual aggregate turnover is up to 2 crore, in such case, GSTR-9 is an optional return. So if you want to still go ahead and file GSTR-9, you can always do that. But it's a kind of optional return where if you don't even want to file GST-9 in case your annual aggregate turnover is up to 2 crore, so in such case, you can always skip GST-9 form. And when we talk about this annual aggregate turnover, we always have to check our turnover at an aggregate level, which includes all of your outward supplies, whether it's a B2B or it's a B2C or it's an exempt supply, nil-rated supply, export, any kinds of supply, you always have to include all your outward supply, excluding the taxes, which is the taxes under GST, excluding that. That is how you compute your aggregate turnover. And again, this turnover, we always have to check at a PAN level. So it's not about like you have to always check at a particular GST and then prepare GST-9. That's not the case. We always have to check your turnover at a PAN level. And if it is exceeding 2 crore, then it becomes mandatory. So you are required to file GST-9 mandatorily in case your annual aggregate turnover exceeds the limit of 2 crore. Similarly, if you ask me what is the limit for GSTR-9C, so for 9C, the limit is 5 crore. So if your annual aggregate turnover exceeds 5 crore, in such case, it becomes mandatory for you to file your GSTR-9C form. So that was about like who all are exactly required to file the GSTR-9 and 9C. So whenever we check the applicability, there we have to always check at a PAN level, which means at a PAN level, you check your turnover, and if it exceeds the threshold limit, in such case, it becomes mandatory, and then it applies for all of your GST, irrespective whether for particular GST you have any supply, you don't have any supply. So once it is applicable at PAN level, you are required to file the GST-9 for all of your GST. So that is how we are required to file the GST-9 and 9C form. If you ask me, who are not required to file 99C form. So if you are registered as an ISD, then obviously you're not required to file 99C. Or if you have registered yourself as a tax collector or a tax deductor, or you have opted for composition scheme and all, for them this 99C form is not applicable. So this is applicable when you're filing your GSTR-1 and GSTR-3B and you're registered as a regular taxable person. Now talking about the due date. So if you ask me what is the due date for your GSTR-9, so it is again 31st December 2022 when we are referring to 21-22. And today in our today's session, right, we are only going to focus on a financial year 21-22. So that's the financial year we are going to refer to. One important part when it comes to GST-9, we need to very carefully file the GST-9 form, because once this GST-9 form is filed, we cannot revise it. And this is actually treated as a final statement which we file. After that, if you want to do some amendments or some adjustments in the 9 form, we cannot do that. Even if department issues a notice, they see, okay, whatever was filed in 9 is correct. The turnover, whatever reflected in 9 is correct. So basis that only they go and actually issue the notices and all. So make sure that whenever you're filing your GST-9 form, it's actually correct, and then only you go ahead and file it, right? So this was about that 9 form cannot be revised and what are the consequences. And we all know that there is a late fees if you don't file GST-9 on time, and the late fees is 200 rupees per day, subject to the maximum amount of the quarter, which is 0.25% of the turnover in a state or a union territory. So that's like a kind of a late fees and the penalty which needs to be levied in case you don't file your GST-9 on time. But now let's come to our important part of this session, because today we are going to mainly focus on the preparation and the finalization of the GSTR-9. So that is one our focus would be, right? So we are going to focus on how you are going to prepare GSTR-9 and how you make sure that there is no mistake while you are preparing your GSTR-9 or 9C form. So here, before even going ahead and preparing the GSTR-9 form, there are some information which you should have handy with you. So first you get all this information and then you should go ahead and prepare your GSTR-9 form. So if you ask me what are that information, you should have your file GSTR-1 with you. When I'm saying you should have file GSTR-1, again, we are focusing on FY 21-22. So in today's entire session, we'll just focus on FY 21-22 GSTR-9, right? So here, first thing which you should have is your file GSTR-1. And this file GSTR-1 should be from your April 21 till September 2022. And why I'm saying September 2022? Because in case you have made any amendments which was related to FY 21-22, you could have made only till September return period, which is September next year. So if there were some amendments, adjustments, anything which was done, you would have done in that return period. So we should always get your file GSTR-1 till September 2022. So that's the first thing. You should have your file GSTR-1 till September. And obviously right now we are in the month of September. You would obviously say that, hey, we have not even filed our GSTR-1 for the month of August or maybe even September. So how would we even have that? It's okay. Obviously for 2 months you will not have now, but in general you should always have till September. But right now I would obviously suggest that we should start preparing your GSTR-9 itself. And the main reason why we should start now itself is that in case there are some adjustment, in case there were some errors which was made in the file return, you can correct it. You have some time to correct it. And the time is like you can actually correct in your file GSTR-1 for the month of August or maybe even September. Right? I could see there is a question from MK who was asking, ma'am, is it September or November? So MK, it is still like a September due date. So till September due date, you can actually make the adjustments in your file GSTR-1 or maybe even in your GSTR-3B. And the reason is, I guess, okay, so people were even asking if I can just share the last slide. So this is the last slide. And the reason is that the November deadline which you're referring to, right? So this was recommended in the GST Council meeting, but there was no notification for the same. So as of now, if you ask me like what is the time limit for any amendments or adjustments, so it's September due date. So that's like the last timeline when you can do any amendments or any adjustments, or you can even add any invoices if you have missed out. Now we were talking about you should have your file GSTR-1. That was the first thing. Second, obviously you should have your file GSTR-3B too. So you have your file GSTR-3B. You should have especially your GSTR-2B. Again for the same financial year. So you should have all of your file return, which is file GSTR-1, file 3B. You should have your GSTR-2B. You will also get table 80 of GST-9 at a document level, because again government provide you at a document level. Then you should have your books of accounts. So in your books accounts, obviously you would know that this is your entire sales register, including expenses and all, on which like your ITC, everything is claimed. So you should have your entire, I would say, books of account, which have the information in respect of the GST liability, the turnover. You should also have the information in respect of the ITC, which you have to claim, or you have to reverse that ITC, or you have done something over there. So all that detail will be there from your books of account. So the next set of information you should have handy is your books of account, right? So these are the some of the information which you should always have. Now, once you got every information right, you have 1, 3B, the 2B, you have 80 of GSTR-9 at a document level, because that again you can download from the government portal. You also have your books of accounts, which have the sales register as well as the purchase or the expenses register, where you can get the liability and the ITC information. Once you have all this thing, the next step over here is various type of reconciliations. First, you have to reconcile your GSTR-1, 3B and your books, which means you are reconciling your liability. Whether the liability as per your GSTR-1, you are, I would say, the GSTR-3B and your books of account, is it matching or not? So that's the first step which you have to do. Again, make sure while you're even comparing, we are doing an apple to apple comparison over here. When I'm saying apple to apple comparison, many times we do some mistakes, like let's say I have a B2B RCM, right? When I'm doing B2B RCM, you all know that in GSTR-3B, in the tax liability, we don't show the tax liability. But when it comes to GSTR-1, we always show it's a B2B RCM tax amount also. So while you're comparing, make sure you are doing apple to apple comparison, which means if some information needs to be reflected in GSTR-1, then only it's compared with 3B also. And vice versa, then only it's compared with books of accounts also. That is how we need to compare. So now compare your 1, 3B books of account, this one set of information. Then you accordingly also compare your GSTR-3B with your GSTR-2B and your books of account, which is your purchase and the expense register. So match that also, whether the ITC at an overall level and a month-on-month level, is it even matching or not, right? So that's another part of the information which needs to be done. Once now you have reconciled, let's say now focus only on the liability side. So now we are looking into the annual report. We know that in the annual report, which is our GSTR-9, there are different set of information which needs to be kept. There are different parts which is given. There is part 1, there is part 2, part 3, part 4, part 5 and part 6. These are the information which we need to fill in the GSTR-9 form. Now let's divide these parts into 3 major parts, right? So what I'm going to do, we have just divided this entire annual return into 3 major parts, because now we are going to focus on the specific part and then we will fill our GSTR-9 form. Now, when we are dividing the GSTR-9 form, we are going to divide this into the liability and the taxes paid. That's our one important part. Then we will be like focusing on the ITC and its reversal. Third one would be other section. So these are the 3 important parts on which we are going to divide the GSTR-9 form. So now when we are first dividing this into liability and the taxes paid. So we know that liability and the taxes paid, we have major tables as table number 4, we have table number 5, we have table number 9, table number 10, table number 11 and table number 14. So these are the major table which is only focused on the liability and the taxes paid, right? Then we have ITC and ITC reversal. ITC reversal is mainly your table number 6, table number 7, table number 8, then your table number 12 and table number 13. That is focused on your ITC and reversal. And then you have other sections too, right? So let's first focus on the first part, which is the first limb of this entire GSTR-9 thing, which is your liability and the taxes paid. Now, when you ask me how you're going to even fill the liability and the taxes paid, right? We have one source is GSTR-1, second source is your GSTR-3B, and the third source is your books of account. These are the 3 major sources when it comes to the liability and the taxes paid. Because entire liability information we show in GSTR-1, we also show in GSTR-3B, and we also show in obviously books of account. Ideally, all of these 3 information should always match, right? Whatever the liability I'm saying I have in respect of the GST should match with my book, should match with my GSTR-1, should match with my GSTR-3B. I'm removing the inward supply liable to RCM, because if I talk about inward supplies, which is my purchases and on which I was liable to pay the taxes, that is only reported in my GSTR-3B, and it will also be there in my books of account, but it will never be there in my GSTR-1. For now, just remove that. Let's not focus on the inward supply, which was liable to reverse charge, where I was liable to pay any liability. So for now, just remove that part and only focus on our outward liability. which means all the liability on my sales part, all the liability which is on my supply part, right? So now when I focus on the liability wala part, here what will happen, right? For the liability, I'm saying you have table number 4, table number 5, table number 9, table number 10, table number 11, and table number 14. So these are the major tables which is related to your liability. See, ideally, whatever the turnover and the liability you have as per your books account for FY 21-22 will be shown in your entire GSTR-9 form. It's okay that this is in different tables of GSTR-9 form, but whatever the turnover and the liability you have in relation to FY 21-22, which has to be actually shown in GSTR-9 form. Now let me ask you one very simple question. Before even going to like maybe table 4, table number 5, 10 and 11 and all, let me just ask you a very simple question. Assume that you had one case, and before even explaining about different tables of GSTR-9, because now we know that we have been filing GSTR-9 for any lot of previous years and all, right? Let me ask you one thing, that what happened that you had one turnover, right? There was a turnover for financial year 2021. So for FY 2021, you had some turnover, you had done some sales, right? You have done a sales of 1 lakh rupees. And what you have done, you forgot to report that particular sales in your GST-1 of FY 2021, right? My question to all of you is, and what you have done, you have shown that in the next year, sales which was related to FY 2021, you have reported in the next year, which means you have reported in FY 21-22, right? And what you have done, you have reported in the next year. It's okay. So you have B2C supplies. Let's say it was supplied to an unregistered person. And instead of amending that in the next year, right? You always have a time limit till September return period where you can amend. Instead of amending that, you have just added that as your supplies. You have added that as a B2C supply for FY 21-22. Now my question to all of you is, whether this is your turnover for FY 21-22 or this is the turnover for FY 21-22. So you can reply on the chat box that there was some turnover related to FY 21-22 as per your books of account, but you have wrongly reported in your GST-1 of 21-22 as a B2C supply instead of amending it. So whether this is a turnover for FY 21-22 or the next year. I could see there's a reply from a lot of people over here. So Avaru says 21-22, MK says 20-21, Sandesh says 21-22, Vijay says 21-22, 20. Okay, I'm getting actually mixed answers over here. So some people says it's 20-21 and other one says it's 21-22. Now just to answer you, right? So see, we always have to take base as our books of account. So always while we are filing GST-9, for me, the base should always be my books of account. And as per my books of account, this is the turnover for FY 2021. Though I have made a mistake while reporting in my GSTR return and have reported in the next year, does not mean that my turnover has changed it to 21-22 rather than 20-21. So in this example, this is my turnover for FY 2021. So which means ultimately this has to be reported in your GST-9 of 2021 and not in GST-9 of 21-22. So in short, if just summarize this part, right? While you are showing the liability, which is your outward liability and the turnover, you should make sure that while you're filing your GST-9, maybe in different tables, it will have the entire turnover which is related to the particular financial year, irrespective of whether the liability again the same is paid, it is not paid, it is paid in the current year, or it is paid in the next year. Doesn't matter. If that turnover, the outward liability and the turnover is related to a particular financial year, it should be shown in the same financial year of GSTR-9 and it should not be shown in the different financial year. That is one important part which we should always remember when we are showing the turnover and liability and while we are filing GST-9 for a particular financial year. So when now I'm filing GST-9 for FY 21-22, one important part which you should always remember is that it will always have the outward liability which is related to FY 21-22. It will not have the outward liability which is related to previous year or maybe next year. And doesn't matter whether it was paid in the current year or it is paid in the next year, or if it is not even paid. Liability related to the current year has to be shown in the GST-9 for the current year. Right? So this part is clear to everyone. Now we are, because focusing on the liability and the taxes paid. So here we have different tables of GST-9 form, right? We have table number 4. Table number 4 is focused on like you have B2C supply, B2B supply, zero rated supply, supplies to SEC. So mainly on which taxes needs to be paid, right? On whatever we are paying the taxes is coming in table number 4. Table number 5 is, again, when we look into table number 5, table 5 where we don't have to pay any taxes, like export without payment of IGST, or supplied on SEZ without payment of IGST, or maybe when we talk about exempted supply, nil rated supply, though it's my turnover, but I don't have to pay any taxes at all, that will fall in table number 5, right? So table number 4 and table number 5, these are the information. Here also they have categorized, right? You have to give a B2C supplies information separately, then B2B supplies information separately. Whatever you're supplying to an SCZ unit, the information needs to be shown separately. That is how you have to show the information in table number 4 and 5. Then we said, because now I'm focused only on the outward supply and the tax liability wala part. So table 4, table 5, then we have table number 9. Table number 9 actually have what is the tax payable you have and what are the tax you have paid through cash or through ITC. You have to tell us that part, right? That is table number 9. Then you have table number 10 and table number 11. Table number 10 and table number 11 exactly means the transaction which was related, right, which is related to the current financial year and have the taxes have been paid in the next financial year. Here, whenever we read this, right, we always have to read it in a way, the liability related to FY 21-22, but the taxes have been paid from April 2022 to September 2022. That information has to be reported in table number 10 and table number 11, right? And then table number 14 is whatever we have shown in table number 10 and 11, the taxes which we have paid, we have to show in table number 14. So that is how we have to show this information. Now, what exact information needs to be shown in different tables? We said table 4, table 5, table 10, table 11, table number 9, and table number 14. So these are the tables which we referred right now. So here, when we look into this, right, table number 4 and 5 has to be in respect of my outward supplies on which the liability was also paid in the same financial year. So wherever the tax liability related to the current year and the liability is also paid in the same year, then that information needs to be shown in table number 4 and 5. What I'm saying, liability related to the current year and the taxes in respect of that liability is also paid in the same year, which means ultimately the liability which was related to FY 21-22 and I have paid the liability also in GSTR-3B in the same FY 21-22, then that information will be reflected in my table number 4 and table number 5. That is the first important part. Second part is the liability which was related to the current year. Liability related to FY 21 and 22 on which I have not paid taxes in the current year or even in the next year. That also have to be reported in table number 4 and 5. So sometime what happened that after we have done the reconciliation, right, between GST-1, 3B and the books of account, we realized that there was some liability which we have not even shown in GST-1, we have not shown in 3B, we have not shown till date, right? See, ideally, if you get such cases, what you should do, you should show in the August month itself, because now we have to file your GST-1 and 3B for the month of August, right? Just show that in the August return period itself, or maybe in the September return itself, and then show in table number 10 and 11, right? Though that is the ideal scenario, but think about, you realize your mistake in the month of November, and when the time limit for filing any amendments or addition was already gone. In such case, what you are going to do, you have to show that information in table number 4 and pay the liability through DRC 03, that is a challan through you, which you are going to make the payment. So in short, if you ask me, table number 4 and 5 consist of the liability related to the current year and on which taxes have also been paid in the current year or have not been paid till now. Not in the current year, not in the next year, then that information will come and sit in table number 4 and 5. Table number 10 and 11 exactly means the liability which was related to the current year and which has been paid in the next year. Which means there was some tax liability related to FY 21-22, but I have paid the taxes through my GSTR 3B in next year, which means from April 2022 to September 2022. In such case, the information will be reflected in table number 10 or table number 11. So if there is a positive adjustment, then it will be in table number 10, where means, for example, there was a liability of 100 related to FY 21-22. I paid that 100 in maybe let's say April 2022. Information will be shown in table number, I would say table number 10. There could be the reversal thing also. There was a credit note which I had to show, but I forgot to show. And I have shown that maybe in April 2022, which was related to FY 21-22 itself. Then that information will be shown in table number 11. So whenever there is a negative adjustment, show in 11. Whenever positive, like taxes where taxes are increasing, show in table number 10. So taxes increasing in 10, taxes decreasing, show in table number 11. So this was about table number 4, 5, table number 10 and 11. And again, when we look into table number 9, whatever you have shown in table number 4 and 5, right, that will form part of your table number 9. Whatever you have shown in table number 10 and 11, 10 minus 11 will always come and sit in your table number 14. So that is how we have to show this different information. So now another important part, because we are referring to table number 4 and 5 also, right? Again, in table number 4 and 5, there are some information. So where government is asking, okay, tell me what is your B2C, what is your B2B, what is your supply to an SCZ, with payment, without payment, deemed export, and all of this information. They are also asking about some credit note which is related to maybe B2B supply or export supply. So show me that information separately. If there are some amendments, which means let's say there was some liability related to April, and let's say in April 2021, what I have done, I have shown one invoice, B2B invoice, as 1 lakh rupees. But let's say in the month of May, I realized in like May 2021 itself, I realized I made a mistake. It was not 1 lakh, it was 1,20,000. So what government is saying in general, if you ask me, okay, 1 lakh you show in one, like B2B section itself, and the differential amount, the amendment which you have done in this example. So amendment I have done for 20,000, right? So that 20,000 you show in table number 4K. So that is how you have to show that information. So this is in general. That is how this entire GST-9 form is even divided. But wait, again, we know that as per the notification, what government have done, just for ease of the compliance, and people don't have to end up like doing all these informations and all, what government says, okay, you don't worry about this. You, whatever the liability you have related to the current year and the taxes on which is also paid in the current year, you just show in table number 4, and you just have to show this drill down. You don't have to show the credit note separately, debit note separately, amendment separately, and all, which is done in the same financial year. So if you have done any amendment in the same financial year, you're saying you just show here itself. So ultimately, in our example, where my liability was 1,20,000, actual liability was 1,20,000. So in April, I showed 1 lakh, but then I have done B2BA of 1,20,000 in the month of May, which is same financial year. I can directly show 1,20,000 because ultimately my liability is for 1,20,000. So I can directly show 1,20,000 in 4D. So this particular fields are optional in nature. So I can always skip that, and I don't even have to fill all this information separately. I can show everything here itself. So I only need this drill down. Even when you have a credit note in relation to B2B, you can always show a net figure over here rather than showing a proper drill down here. Rather than doing a separations over here, you can always show the net figure here rather than showing all information here. So that is what they have talked about. Similarly, when we talk about the table number 5 also, same information they have done here also, but they are saying that when it comes to your exempted, nil rated and non-GST, ideally, when the form was built, they said you have to show the exempted supply separately, nil rated supply separately, and non-GST supply separately. But now what they're saying that, okay, nil rated and exempted you can show together. There is no problem. But non-GST still you have to show separately. But when it comes to exempted and nil rated, because people have a lot of confusion. What is exempted? One is nil rated. We have made a lot of mistake even while we file for GST-1 and all, right? So just to avoid all that confusion, they say, okay, you just merge the exempted and the related supply and just show in table number 5D itself. So there is no problem there. So this is something. And also when it comes to the information related to credit note in respect of, let's say, export without payment of IGST or SCC, you can just show the net figure over here. It's not necessary that you show the credit note or debit note or amendment which was done in the same financial year. You don't have to show all that information separately. This all are optional in nature. You can just show the net figure here itself rather than showing all the breakdowns. So just to ease in the compliance, they're asking you don't have to show all breakdown and just show information over here itself. So this is about table number 4 and 5. Now when we talk about table number 9, okay, I think there is one table which is skipped. So here we also show tax payable. So the tax payable wala part in table number 9 will be from your table number 4 and 5. So whatever you have shown in table number 4 and 5, which means ultimately 5N plus 4G also, because whatever the liability and the reverse charge will also come in table number your 9. So that information will also be part of this, which will come as a tax payable wala thing. So ultimately whatever you have shown in 5N plus 4G is related to inward supply liable to RCM. So that information has to be shown in table number 9 under tax payable, right? I think there is one question from Akshay who was asking where to report the turnover which has no supply. So that information, Akshay, we have to show in table number 5F. So if it is not a supply at all, that has to be shown under the 5F. So this information will be shown here. And I know there are people who are asking if we can also get the PPT. So whosoever is already registered on this platform, right, or through this right link, you will be actually receiving the PPT over your registered mail ID. So after the end of the session, you will be receiving the like PPT. Now, one part, right? Because we just talked about table number 4, we talked about table number 5, we talked about table number 9 and all. So one part, if you just see, there is a paid through cash, there is paid through ITC. And if we look into this, this is a non-editable field. This is not editable. And today government auto-populate this information basis your GSTR-3B, right? So they auto-populate this information basis your GSTR-3B. So if we again look into your GSTR-3B and what exactly return period they're going to even look into it, they're looking into the return period which is from your April 21 till March 2022. Whatever the liability you have paid from April 21 to March 2022 will come over here. So you will be able to see this information over here. But we also understand that if we look into again GSTR-3B, there are also possibility that there was some liability related to the last year, but which was paid in the current year. Is there, right? And when I'm saying current year, always refer to 21-22. Whenever I'm saying previous year, refer to 2021. And whenever I'm saying next year, refer to April 22 till September 22, right? So that is what I'm referring to. So here we also understand that there could be some liability which is related to the last year but was paid in the current year, and that information also you will be able to see over here. So under the paid through ITC or paid through cash, that liability which you have paid will also be appearing over here, right? So in such case where the liability which was related to the last year but was paid in the current year will be coming over here. But we also know that in table number 4, we will be showing only the liability which was related to the current year, and always the taxes was also paid in the current year, right? And here we also have one more column called tax payable. So under the tax payable, you will only have the liability related to the current year paid in the current year. But when it comes to taxes paid, it may have the tax liability related to the current year paid in the current year plus tax liability related to the previous year paid in the current year. Both of that would be obviously there. So here you will see the differences, but that is okay. You will always see a difference over here, but you don't have to worry about it. In such case, what you have to make sure that this was part of your last year table number 10 and 11. So when it was part of your table number 10 and 11, so what is there was 10 minus 11, the liability, that exactly means that this is the liability related to the previous year and was paid in the next year, right? So there would be the differences. So whenever you look into the last year table number 10 minus 11, plus whatever the tax payable comes over here will always match with this, right? So this is something which we have to do. Now, if you ask me what information needs to be shown in table number 10 and table number 11, this have the information where the liability was related to the current years, which means liability was related to FY 21-22, but the taxes was paid in the next year, which means taxes was paid from April 22 to September 22, then information has to be shown over here. Liability related to current year, taxes paid in the next year will be shown in table number 10 and table number 11. I could see there's a question from Mahesh who's asking taxes paid in June 22 to March 2022. So I think if it is related to the current year, then, and obviously paid also in the current year, then you have to show in table number 4 and 5. If it is related to current year, paid in the next year, then this has to be shown in table number 10 and 11. I know there would be a lot of confusion. Let's now come to the case study. Let's jump into the case study. And now you will be actually answering this, that where exactly the different information needs to be shown, whether we need to show in table number 4, 5, or we have to show the information in table number 10 or 11. So that is what you are going to answer. So first example is, let's say as per my books of account, the liability is 100 rupees. As per GST-1, again, the liability is 100 rupees. As per 3B also, the liability is 100 rupees. So in April 21 and to March 2022 itself, you have paid the taxes and you have also shown that. My question is, in which table you are going to show this information, whether you will show in table number 4 or you will show in table number 10 or table number 11. I could see the answer from Harish, Naresh, Suma, everyone says table number 4, Subha says 4, Ashokan says 4, Siddhi says, Swati says 4, Brian says 4, Nikhil says 4, Dhamesh says 4. Everyone is saying 4 and that's actually the right answer. So this information needs to be shown in table number 4 of GSTR-9. Let's talk about the second example. Again, in FY 21-22, in books it's 4, in GST-1 it's, in books it's 100, in GST-1 also it's 100, but in 3B, in the same financial year, you have paid only 80 and 20 you have shown in FY 22-20, like till September 22. So now question is, how much information you are going to show in table number 4 and how much information you are going to show in table number 10 or table number 11. I could see the answer. We are getting answer from Guljar. Guljar says 10, 11. Mangesh says 10, 11. Nitesh says 18 table number 4, 20 in table number 10. Biplav says 20 in table number 10 and 11. Okay. And Pankaj says 10 and 11, 20. And it's actually the right answer. So I think most of you are actually answering it right. So in table number 4, we'll show 80 because this is a liability related to the current year, paid in the current year, we'll show in table number 4, and the liability related to the current year paid in the next year has to be shown in table number 10. Now another third example. Here what happened? So see, if you want to just get a crux right, what you have to do, you have to fill in the backward thing. So first you have to do whatever the liability related to the current year and paid in the next year, show in table number 10. Right, whatever the adjustment which was related to the current year done in the next year, which means negative adjustment, show in table number 11, and the differential amount. Now you all know that your turnover is whatever is your turnover, right? And the differential amount, the total turnover minus what is shown in 10 and 11 will be coming in table number 4. So ultimately, when you sum up table number 4 plus 10 minus table number 11, this turnover will always match with your books of account. The liability shown in table 4 plus 10 minus 11 should always match with your books of account. That is one thing which you should always keep in your mind, right? So if in this example, I actually got like a different answers. I could see Naveen says 18 table number 4, Mangesh says 18 in table number 4, Kishan says table number 4, 80. Okay, so see here what was happening. I have actually paid the entire liability in the same financial year, right? I have not paid any liability in the next financial year. So in this particular example, we have to show every information in table number 10, sorry, table number 4 itself. So entire 100 amount has to be shown in table number 4. Now let's talk about another example. What I have done here, I have made a mistake in turnover. Liability was correctly shown, but turnover I have made a mistake, which means taxable value. When I was looking into taxable value, I made a mistake. So my correct I would say my correct turnover as per books of account was, let's say 10,000. Liability was 100 in each case. Now question is, what turnover I will show in table number 4 or table number 10 or 11? My liability is 100, which is a correct liability. Correct liability reported in table number, I would say in GSTR-1 or 3B or my books of account. So how or what exact turnover I'm going to show in table number 4 or table number 10 or 11. I could see Ravi says 10,000, Jyoti says 10,000, Anoop says 10,000, Dharmen says 10,000. Okay, everyone is saying we have to show 10,000 in table number 4, which is my correct liability and sorry, correct turnover, and which is the correct answer. So here we have to show 10,000, which is a correct turnover as per my books of accounts. So if you have made any mistake and you have not even rectified in the file return, make sure that the mistakes you have made has been rectified in the GST-9 form itself. So which means ultimately the 10,000 turnover you have to show in table number 4. And now liability, 100 rupees liability, you will be showing the entire liability in table number 4 itself. Because in 3B you have paid the entire 100 liability in the same financial year. So this is how we have to show in table number 4. We'll show entire 100 rupees ka liability. And when it comes to turnover, you will be showing 10,000 turnover in table number 4 itself. Let's talk about the another example. This is the negative adjustments which I was referring to. So here what happened that in 3B you paid 110 and then you realize your mistake and you have adjusted that in the next financial year. So you have adjusted 10 rupees in the next financial year. Again the same question, in which table you are going to show this liability. I could see Prerna says 11, Ravi says 11, Nikhil says 11, Radha says 11, Sandeep says 11, and everyone is saying the correct answer. So here in this example, the 10 rupees, right? So 10 rupees we have to show in table number 11. So in 10 rupees we'll show in table number 11, and in table number 4 we are going to show 110. So ultimately when we look into it, table 4 plus like table number 4 plus 10 minus 11, the net result will always match with my books of account, which will be 100. So in this example also 110 will show in table number 4 and minus 10 will be showing in table number 11. So ultimately your result will always be equivalent to the 100 rupees, which is your net tax liability. Right? So this is how we have to show. Talk about this. What happened in this case? I have not even adjusted till now. I forgot to adjust it. I have extra paid the liability. So in case I have extra paid the liability and I have not even adjusted the next financial year, what we are going to do in such case? So what happened? My actual liability was 100 rupees. But in GSTR 3B, what I have done, I have paid 120 and I have not adjusted till date. So in such case, what we are going to show, what exact liability we are going to show in different tables of GSTR 9. I could see Harish says in table number 4, we are going to show 100 rupees. What about others? Dharmendra says 4, Swati says 100, Vikas says 4, Naveen says 4, Swapnil says 4. Everyone says table number 4, 100, and this is the correct answer. So here I have not adjusted anything in my next year. So if I have not done anything in the next year, which means I'm not going to show anything in table number 10 and table number 11. So nothing, no information has to be shown in table number 10 or table number 11. So which means ultimately when we look into table number 4, we have to show the exact liability. And that liability should always match with my books of account. So in table number 4, we are going to show 100, which is the hamari exact liability as per books of account, right? So this is what we have to do. Now let's refer to the another set of things, which is input tax credit and the ITC reversal. So till now we just focus on the liability and the taxes paid. Now let's focus on the ITC and its reversal. So when we talk about ITC and its reversal, right? So here the important part. So here we don't have to look into always books of account. Obviously that's an important thing. But this actually means when exactly you have claimed that ITC. So here we have different tables. We have table number 6, table number 7, table number 8, table number 12, and table number 13. So these are the main relevant tables when it comes to the tables related to ITC and its reversal. So in table number 6, when we look into it, in table number 6A itself, in 6A, government auto-populate this information as per your GSTR 3B. So you know that in your GSTR 3B, you have a section called all other ITC. Right, so in table number 3B, you have a section called all other ITC, which is ultimately table number 4A, right? So in GSTR 3B, you have like again 4A, 1, 2, 3, 4, all of these things which have information in relation to your ITC related to import of good, ITC related in relation to your import of services, ITC related to reverse charge. So when you look into your GSTR 3B form, it has been categorized into mainly 3 parts. Table number 4A, 4B, 4C. 4A talks about all the ITC which you have claimed. 4B talks about all the ITC reversals which you have done. And 4C talks about the net ITC, right? And now government also have 4D. 4D talks about the ineligible ITC. And now we know there's a recent change which government have already done. We'll not talk about that because anyhow it's not even relevant for FY 21-22. So while we are filing GST-9 for FY 2021-22, it's not even relevant because that is a change which is done from August 2022 return period. So we're not going to refer to that change. So ultimately, when we look into 3B form, we have 4A, which is related to entire ITC claimed part. 4B, ITC reversal. 4C, net ITC. Right? Now, when we look into table number 6A, table number 6A is actually only referring to the 4A and not the net ITC, which means this has the ITC which you have claimed. It does not have the impact of the ITC reversal. This is one important part which we should always keep in our mind, that this have the ITC only in respect of what you have claimed, and it does not deal with the reversals which you have done. You may have done the reversal as per 42, you may have done some reversal as per 43, you may have done some reversals as per maybe 37, or maybe you have done some because of credit notes also. So when we see how government even auto-populate the information basis to be, so they show the credit note which has been issued under the ITC reversal other, rather than showing that as a net figure in your table number 4A5 itself. That is not how it is shown. It's shown under the ITC reversals others. But now when you look into 6A, right, 6A actually refers to the ITC which you have claimed, and it does not have the impact of the ITC reversal. That is one important part which you should always keep in your mind while we are filling your GSTR-9. Now when you just see here, right, under the 4B, 4C, D, E, F and all this, whatever the ITC you have claimed in your GSTR-3B, you have to give a breakdown of this. You have to tell that, okay, out of this ITC, what is the ITC related to reverse charge from a registered person? What is the ITC related to reverse charge from unregistered person? What is the ITC which is related to the purchases you have made from the registered dealer? What is the ITC which is related to import of goods? What is the ITC which is related to import of services? What is the ITC which is related to the purchases from an IST? All this information, when you look into it, you already have in your GSTR-3B itself. So in GSTR-3B, you know that, so whatever you have shown in 3B, we can directly get, okay, what is import of goods while ITC. In 3B itself, you would know, okay, this is ITC related to import of services. In 3B itself, we will know this is ITC related from IST. But in 3B, we don't know that ITC, what you have claimed in 3B related to the reverse charge thing, that how much is from the registered and how much is from the unregistered. Right? So that information is not there in the 3B. So ultimately, whatever you have claimed here, you just have to show the breakdown of this. But the problem over here is one problem, this breakdown. Breakdown of whether it's an input or it's a capital goods or an input services, it is not there in your GSTR-3B. That's the first thing. Second, under this reverse charge ITC also, you don't know how much is from the registered, how much is from the unregistered. So just to ease the compliance, what government have done for such cases, what information you just don't have, right? So they have actually made it optional in nature. So now when we look into this, when we look into table number 6, what they have done, that, okay, this is an ITC which I'm going to actually show over here. So it will obviously include the figures which is pertaining to FY 2021 and you have claimed in 21-22. That information will always be there. You always have to show the breakdown of this, that, okay, this is an ITC which you have like shown above. Now the two important part, whether you have to show the breakdown of whether it's an input service or a capital goods. So what the government have given relaxation over here, that for input and input service, you don't have to give us a breakdown. So for input service, you can show entire information under input itself. There is no problem. But for capital goods, so if this ITC was related to the capital goods, then you have to separately show that. So if you have information related to capital goods, you have to show that information here. But whatever the information which is related to input and the input service, you can merge together and just show directly under the input itself. That is one thing. Another important part is, because here also I was talking about this reverse charge and all, right? So not only reverse charge, even the other breakdown. So the government says, if you don't want to provide all these breakdowns, whether it was related to the purchase from registered or reverse charge or import of services, no problem. You can just sum up all this and just show entire information under the one section itself. So which means ultimately you can just show all this information under the one section itself. So which means here you can show this breakdown, but when it comes to reverse charge part especially, and not actually all the section, mainly the reverse charge thing, whether the reverse charge is from the registered person or the reverse charge is from the unregistered person, right? You don't have to give this breakdown. You can merge these two information together and just show this under the table number 60 itself. So that's another important part where you don't have to give the breakdown and you can just show the information there itself. Now the another important part over here is like this is about table number 6. So which means ultimately if you look into table number 6, here we'll show the ITC which was related to 3B, and then we have to give a breakdown over here. And when we talk about the breakdown over here, breakdown you can always give, and in respect to the reverse charge part, you don't have to give a separate breakdown of register and unregistered. You can merge together and show together over here. Now, when we talk about one part, table number 6, one important part which I was referring to, that here this is all related to what you have claimed. This does not have any information what is reversed. So if you have reversed something, that information is not coming in table number 6. That is one important part. So reversal information is actually coming in table number 7. So now whatever the ITC you have reversed will actually fall and sit over here in table number 7. So in table number 7, again, you have to show, okay, is it because of 37, 39, rule number 42, 43, all this information has to be shown over here, but just to again ease, because obviously sometimes we don't have all this information. So in such case, you can show all this information under one section itself. So there is a table number 7H. So in the 7H itself, you can show all the reversals which you have done in 3B and just put the entire figure over here itself, right? Now, one part you may again see, there is as per section number 17.5. Let me ask you one simple question. Today, you all know that if we look into your GSTR 3B, right, we have table number 4A where we claim the ITC. We have table number 4B where we reverse the ITC. We have table number 4C which is a net ITC, and then we have 4D where we even show ineligible ITC as per section number 17 subsection number 5. Question is, whatever we have shown in table number 4D, which is under 17.5 in GSTR 3B, whether that information has to be shown here in 7E or not. So to make sure, one important part over here is that if you have first claimed the ITC and then you have reversed the ITC, which was related to 17.5, then that information has to be shown over here. But in cases, because most of the cases, if you look into the accounting entry, that how we do the accounting entry, however this will make a change after this, especially the August return period, after the notification, the new notification, that how we even make an entry in our books of account. So if you ask me, a cases, let's say I have an ineligible ITC, I purchased motor vehicle, I can't claim ITC, assume I am not into that exception wala list. What I will do, I will just directly hit that as in my expenses account, right? Assume that this is direct expenses and all. I have purchased it. I will show, okay, I have purchased, let's say, expense account debit. I will not show IGST separately at all together, or maybe whatever the GST amount was charged, I am not going to show separately. I will directly hit that into my PL account, right? I will directly show, okay, 1,18,000 is my expenses, and that is what I have to pay to the vendor also, right? That is what we do most of the time. But wherever we record this entry as, okay, purchase account debit, which is 1 lakh rupees, IGST amount is 18,000 rupees to vendor account, and then we make a reverse entry, okay, I have to reverse that ITC amount. So again we hit and we say, okay, ultimately IGST account debit to expenses account. Okay, sorry, expenses account debit to my IGST account. So if we make the entry in this way, which means first we claim that ITC and then we reverse that ITC. In such case, we have to show that information in 17.5. But where we directly expense it out, we don't claim, we don't reverse it. In such case, that information which we are reflecting in table number 4D of GSTR 3B should not come over here. right? So the information in respect of 4D will not come over here unless that was part of the table number 4B. So if it was part of your GSTR 3B, 4B, then only that information has to be come over here. Otherwise, this information will not even come over here. Now what we are done in table number, when we look into table number 4, like especially table number 6, right? We have shown all the ITC we have claimed in 3B. In table number 7, we have shown all the ITC reversals which we have done in 3B. Now in table number 8A. 8A may, especially when we look into table number 8A may, this is an ITC which was related. It is nothing but 8A of, like if you look into government also give a document level information. So this is ultimately basis to 2B, right? Whatever was there in 2B will be coming over here. But there is a very important point, and I think this is the one tricky thing which people always find it's very difficult to even fill in. See, ITC as per 2A table 3 and 5, this is nothing but it's actually as per 2B. It have all the ITC which is coming in your GSTR 2A from your return period April till September, where document date is from April to March, right? And this has only your eligible ITC. It does not have your ineligible ITC. Is that true? It only have your eligible ITC from April to September return period. Document dated April to March will be coming over here. And now the thing is, it will also have the impact of the amendments and all, right? All the amendments impact will also be there. It only have the information in respect of your supplies from the registered dealer. It does not have information related to import of goods and all. That information is not there in table number 8A. It have only the purchases you have made from the registered dealer and only have the eligible ITC, which means if, and again, eligible ITC does not mean that something coming under 17.5 as per you will also not fall here. It will be there. The eligible ITC here means as per 2B, which means if there is a difference in place of supply, which means ultimately when the supplier has mentioned something as a place of supply and that is not matching with the state in which you are registered, it is considered as an ineligible ITC. Or wherever the document which was uploaded after the due date of the amendments and all, like after the September return period, it will not form part of your table number 8A. It will again not come over there, right? So that information will never be there in table number 8A. So it only have the eligible ITC, right? Again, it will always have the net information, which means invoices plus debit note minus credit note. So if your supplier have issued some credit note against you, it will always have the net impact, which means invoices plus debit note minus credit note. That's true. There was no problem. All the ITC which was filed by your supplier, which was related to the current year, which is from your actually 2B information will be coming over here. It will not have the import of goods information here, right? Now the part is, what is table number 8B? When we look into table number 8B, 8B is taken from the ITC you have claimed in your GSTR 3B, and in GSTR 3B it is obviously referring to 6B and 6S. This is nothing but the purchases you have made from the registered dealer on which you have claimed the ITC. That information is actually coming in table number 8B, right? So that is the information which is there in 8B. But now, whether you have noticed one important part over here. One important part is that many of us have filed our GSTR 3B basis whatever was auto computed by the GST and basis 2B information. Today, when we look into our auto populated GSTR 3B, if there is some credit note which was issued by the supplier, that is shown as a part of ITC reversal. It is never shown as a net ITC in your table number 4A5. But when you look into this in table number 8A, now assume a very simple example. There was a supplier who have issued an invoice, let's say the amount, the ITC amount was 100 rupees. Then he has also raised a credit note of 20 rupees. So ultimately your net ITC was 80 rupees. Right? I'm not going into any complications. A very simple example. I purchased something. I purchased for 100 rupees ITC, and then there was a credit note which was issued, which was for, again, let's say 20 rupees. So net ITC which I can claim is only 80 rupees. Right? Now, when you look into 8A, What value you are going to get in 8A? You will see 80 rupees. But when you look into 8B, 8B is derived from 6B. And if we have not shown net ITC in 3B, rather we have shown the invoices and all everything information in table number 8, like especially like if you look into 4 in GST 3B, right? So we have table number 4A and we have shown the ITC reversal in 4B, and net ITC is ultimately 80 only in GST 3B, right? So if we look into GST 3B, net ITC is 80 only, there is no problem there. But when you look into 8B, right, there the ITC which you are going to show is 100 rupees. Why 100? Because the credit note information you have shown as a reversal which is coming in table number 7 and not in table number 6. So that reversal is there, but the reversal is in table number 7. But this information which is getting populated is coming from table number 6. So you will always see a difference over here. So here you just have to make sure if you're having a difference is because of the credit note, just keep a separate note for your reference. So even if tomorrow the department comes and issues your notices, or maybe they're issuing some communication, you should be able to reply. So you should have a proper reply for it, that whatever the credit note, because here you will see a net figure, but here when you look into the values, you may see some differences. Here you will be seeing some extra value, but actually it's not an extra, that is something because you have already reversed it, right? So this part you should always keep a separate note with you for your documentation purpose, so that tomorrow whenever the department issues the notices, you can always reply them that this is because of the credit note which is already shown in table number 7. So this is a problem with the form. So whenever there is a problem with the form, you just have to make a separate note with you, and so that tomorrow when you have to reply to the department, we can always do that. I think I'm getting, if Pratik is asking if I can just repeat it. So here what I was saying, that when we look into 8A, it always have the invoices minus credit note information, which means ultimately value over here would be 80. But when we look into 8B, unless that in your GSTR 3B itself you have shown the net figure, you have shown invoices minus credit note. If you have done that, then there is no problem. You will always see 80 rupees here also. But if in 3B you have shown the invoices information in 8A and that ITC reversal, the credit note information you have shown under the ITC reversal, in such case you will see information of 100 rupees. Like if you look into 8B, you will see 100 rupees over here. So you will always see a difference of 20 rupees. So here you just have to keep a note of this. Government allows the negative figures here, there is no problem. But you here, when we look into differences, right, there's a negative figure, but you just keep a note of this particular thing with you, so that you know that in table number 7, the ITC reversal of this amount is already done. So if department comes up tomorrow, you may always tell them that this is something which is already done and is even reflecting in table number 7. So this is one thing. Now the another part is, see, other part is what exact information we need to show in table number 8C. 8C is the information which was related, all the ITC which was related to the current year, but you have claimed in the next year. A very simple thing, right? Many times what happened, I had there were some purchases I have made, let's say on 31st March, but I received the goods only in the month of April. So I can't even claim that in the month of March. I can only claim in the month of April. But when you look into 8A, obviously this information would be there because my supplier will be filing this in the month of April itself. So the ITC which was reflecting in my 2B, and it was even becoming eligible for the same financial year, which is in FY 21-22 itself, but I have claimed in the next GSTR 3B from April 22 to maybe September 2022, all that ITC information has to be shown over here. Shown related to current year, shown in the next year, or claimed in the next year, information needs to be shown over here, right? So this is what we have to show in table number 8C. And the differences amount either. So there can always be a difference over here. As I gave you one simple example of the credit note, right? There can always be differences over here. So that you have to keep a note for you. And not only this, like, see, there can be another reason of differences. Now you will be like, okay, then what could be the other reason? One important part, when we said that it is 8B, right? If it is 8B, ultimately, sorry, when I'm saying 8B, this is coming from your table number 6B, right? Table number 6B actually has the ITC which you have claimed in your GSTR 3B for FY 21-22. That's true. there can also be a chances that I have claimed some ITC in my FY 21-22 which was related to the last year. I may always have some invoices which was filed by my supplier in the last year, but I have claimed in the FY 21-22. Then can also be there. That information will also be coming in table number 8B, right? So in 8B, when we look into this, I may always have an ITC which I have claimed in my GSTR-3B for FY 21-22, but that ITC was related to my previous year and my supplier might have also filed in my previous year itself, which means my supplier would have shown, when I look into my last year table number 8A, that information would have been reflected, right? But that time I would have shown that information in table number 8C because I have claimed in the next year. So then when you look into this, there can also be differences between table number 8A and 8B because of the ITC which you have claimed in the current year but was related to the last year. So that information will also be there. So again, you don't have to worry about this. You just have to keep a note of this and just make sure and just try to match whether this information, because ultimately that ITC you would have shown in table number 13. ITC related to the current year, ITC related to the next year which was claimed in the same year, right? That have been shown in table number 13. So that information you can always match it from there. So this is something which is coming in your table number 8C, and then you have to show whatever is not claimed and maybe ineligible, the information related to import of goods, all this has to be shown. The information related to the ITC which was related to the current year but claimed in the next year has to be shown separately in table number 13 also. And if there was some reversal which was done in the next year but was related to the current year, has to be shown in table number 12. So this is how this information has to be shown in different tables of GSTR-9, and there is obviously a case study for the GSTR this when you refer to the ITC wala part also. So anyhow, I know we have already overjumped the time, our session time. So what we'll do, we'll just share this PPT with you over your registered mail ID so that you can try this cases, right? You can try these cases on your own and then try to answer on your own. You will always see a result also that how to populate this information in different tables of GSTR-9. And then you can actually go ahead and file your GSTR-9. So you can always refer to this case study. Not only this, so not only case study, this is related to ITC part also. We also have some case study which is related to spillover effect. Because here I was referring to spatially and focused spatially on the FY 21-22. We may also have cases where it is related to maybe previous year done something in the current year, something related to current year done something in the next year. So we do have the case study for that too. And you can even refer to the spillover effect. So we have the case study which is related to the spillover effect. So you can even look into that. And one important part. So one important part over here is which is a change from the last year, right? And that is the HSN summary. Till the last year, HSN summary related to the outward supplies was optional in nature. But from FY 21-22, for which we are going to file, this have actually become a mandatory. So now the table number 17, which is the HSN summary of the outward supply, is mandatory in nature and you have to file this information. Whereas the HSN summary related to inward supply is still optional in nature. You have an option. If you want to file, you can. If you don't want to, you can always skip it. But when it comes to outward supply, it have made mandatory from FY 21-22. So this is one important change which is related to GSTR-9 for FY 21-22. So with this, I would like to thanks everyone. Thanks for joining the session. Hope you could now be able to file GSTR-9 with ease. And still, if you have any queries, any doubts, right, you can always mail us. And you can even mail us at a mail which is gstsupport@cleartax.in. That is our mail ID. And you can even reach out to my mail which is surbhi@cleartax.in. We will be happy to answer you over there. So I am also pinging my mail ID on maybe chat box. So that you can, whatever the queries you have and whatever the pre-population data we were talking about, right? So ClearTax already provides you a GSTR-9 software where your GSTR-9 can be automatically populated. You just have to review it. We also provide you a checklist so that you don't make any mistakes while you're filing your GSTR-9. So you can always refer to that checklist so that it will avoid making any mistake. So you can even explore that, try that on your own. And if you have any doubt, you can reach out to me. Thank you very much for attending the session.